chose to save her life, though she said, "Please just make it quick, I can't take more." She sat on the cold floor with her back against the wall, breathing slowly, as if even air had become too heavy to carry. The room was quiet, but her mind was not. Thoughts came one after another, loud and painful, reminding her of every moment she had tried and failed, every time she felt unseen. Time had stopped meaning anything to her. Minutes felt like hours, and hours felt endless. She was not thinking about tomorrow or even the next hour. She was only thinking about how tired she was of holding herself together. Outside, life moved on as usual. Cars passed. People laughed somewhere far away. None of it reached her. She felt cut off from the world, like she was watching life through thick glass. She had once believed things would get better if she worked harder, stayed quiet, and didn't complain. But the weight only grew heavier. Every small problem felt huge. Every memory felt sharp. She had reached a point where hope no longer felt real, only exhausting. When the door finally opened, she barely reacted. Footsteps came closer, careful but quick. He noticed her immediately, not just where she was sitting, but how still she looked, how empty her eyes were. He had seen many people in difficult moments before. Panic, anger, fear. But this was different. This was quiet surrender. It made the air in the room feel heavier. He spoke her name softly, even before she answered. His voice was calm, steady, trained not to rush but not to hesitate either. She lifted her head slowly. Her face showed signs of long nights without rest and days without comfort. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and weak, almost like she was asking for permission to stop trying. She didn't ask for help. She asked for everything to be over quickly, as if pain had become something she could no longer explain or fight. For a moment he paused. Not because he didn't know what to do, but because he understood what her words really meant. They were not about wanting to disappear. They were about wanting the pain to stop, about being tired of pretending to be strong, about feeling like staying was harder than leaving. He knelt down so he was at her level. He didn't touch her yet. He knew that sometimes space mattered as much as action. He spoke again, telling her she was not alone right now, even if she felt alone for a long time. His words were simple, no big promises, no speeches, just presence. She looked away, embarrassed by her own tears. She told him she had tried before, tried to be better, to be enough, to keep going. But every time she stood back up, life knocked her down harder. She felt like a burden, like someone everyone would be better without. Saying it out loud made her feel small, but holding it inside had been worse. He listened, really listened. He didn't interrupt or rush her. In his job, seconds mattered, but in this moment, listening mattered more. He could hear how long she had been carrying this pain by herself, how many times she had swallowed her words to avoid bothering others, how often she told herself she just needed to be stronger. The room felt still, as if everything else had paused to let this moment happen. He noticed the small details, her shaking hands, the way she kept apologizing for crying, the way she avoided his eyes as if she didn't deserve to be seen. These details told him more than any report ever could. She said she didn't see a future anymore. Every plan she once had felt broken. Every dream felt far away, belonging to someone she used to be. She wasn't asking for someone to fix her life. She just didn't want to feel this much hurt anymore. He took a slow breath and spoke carefully. He told her that feeling broken didn't mean she was broken forever. That being tired didn't mean she had failed. He didn't argue with her pain or tell her it wasn't real. Instead, he acknowledged it. He said it made sense that she felt worn out after carrying so much for so long. That surprised her. Most people tried to cheer her up or tell her to be grateful. No one had ever said her pain made sense. Tears fell again, but this time they felt different, less heavy, more honest. For the first time in a long while, she felt heard. He explained that his job was to protect life, even when someone felt unsure about their own. Not because rules told him to, but because every life mattered, especially in moments like this. He told her she didn't have to decide anything right now. All she had to do was stay with him in this moment. She shook her head weakly, saying she didn't have the strength to keep going. He didn't correct her. He simply reminded her that strength didn't always look like fighting. Sometimes it looked like letting someone else hold things for a while. Slowly, she allowed him to come closer. Not because she suddenly felt better, but because something in his calm made the fear soften just a little. The room no longer felt as tight. The silence no longer felt so loud. In that moment, nothing magical happened. The pain didn't disappear. The past didn't change. But something small shifted. Someone had chosen to stay with her in her darkest moment, without judgment, without rushing away. Someone had chosen her life when she could not. She began to speak slowly, not in a straight story, but in broken pieces, like memories falling out when she could no longer hold them inside. Her words came between shallow breaths. Some sentences stopped halfway, as if finishing them was too heavy. He stayed quiet, giving her time, letting her choose what to share and what to keep to herself. She talked about how life once felt normal. Not perfect, just normal. There were days when she laughed easily and nights when sleep came without a fight. She remembered being younger, believing that effort always led to results. If she tried hard enough, things would work out. That belief had kept her going for years. But slowly, without her even noticing at first, things began to change. She spoke about constant pressure, expectations from family, from work, from herself. Everyone seemed to need something from her, but no one noticed how empty she felt inside. She was the one people depended on, the one who listened, the one who stayed strong. Over time, being strong stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like a trap. She described waking up every morning already tired. Even before the day began, she felt behind. Small tasks felt huge. Simple decisions felt impossible. She blamed herself for it, telling herself she was weak, lazy, or ungrateful. She compared herself to others and always came up short. No matter what she did, it never felt like enough. He noticed how often she apologized while speaking. She said sorry for taking his time. Sorry for talking too much. Sorry for not making sense. Each apology sounded like something she had practiced for years. It told him how often she felt like she was in the way. She shared how she tried to ask for help before, but not directly. She dropped hints, made jokes about being tired, stayed quiet longer than usual. When no one noticed, she convinced herself that it meant no one cared. Slowly, she stopped trying. Silence felt safer than being ignored. Her voice grew softer when she spoke about feeling alone even in crowded rooms. She could sit with people she loved and still feel completely unseen. Smiles became automatic. Laughter became a habit. Inside, she felt like she was fading, but on the outside, she looked fine. People praised her for handling everything so well, not knowing how close she was to falling apart. He listened closely, not just to her words, but to the spaces between them. He could hear the exhaustion in her pauses, the years of holding back tears. This wasn't pain from one bad day or one hard moment. This was pain that had been growing quietly for a long time. She talked about nights when her thoughts wouldn't slow down. Her mind replayed mistakes, conversations, moments she wished she could change. Sleep felt like a stranger. Even when she rested, she woke up feeling empty. She started believing that this was just how life would always feel. At one point, her voice shook as she said she felt like a burden. She believed that if she disappeared from everyone's life, things would be easier for them. She listed the people she loved and explained how they would be better without her worries, her sadness, her constant need to pretend. Saying it out loud hurt, but keeping it inside had hurt more. He gently reminded her that pain can lie, that when someone feels worn down for too long, their mind starts telling stories that feel real but aren't kind or fair. He didn't argue with her feelings. He simply told her that feeling like a burden didn't make her one. She looked at him, unsure whether to believe that. Trust didn't come easily anymore. Life had taught her to expect disappointment. Still, his calm didn't change. He didn't rush her to feel better. He didn't try to fix her story. He stayed present, steady, as if her words mattered enough to deserve time. She shared memories of moments that broke her confidence, little by little. Words spoken carelessly by others. Times she gave her best, and it still wasn't enough. Each moment alone seemed small, but together they had built a heavy weight she carried every day. As she spoke, something inside her shifted. Not relief, not happiness, but release. These thoughts had lived inside her for so long, growing louder in silence. Saying them out loud didn't make them disappear, but it made them feel less powerful, less lonely. He told her that what she was feeling wasn't failure, it was exhaustion. That carrying too much for too long can make anyone feel empty. He reminded her that asking for rest didn't mean giving up. It meant being human. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting his words sink in. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't trying to explain herself or justify her pain. She was simply being heard. That alone felt unfamiliar and strangely comforting. Tears rolled down her face again, but she didn't hide them this time. She didn't apologize either. He took that as a quiet sign of trust. The room felt warmer, less heavy than before. She admitted she didn't know what she wanted anymore. Not happiness, not success, just peace. just a break from the constant noise in her head. He told her that wanting peace was not wrong, that it was something worth protecting. As her voice grew tired, he reassured her that she didn't have to carry the rest of the story tonight. This moment wasn't about solving everything. It was about making sure she didn't face it alone. She nodded slightly, her breathing slowing. The past was still there. The pain was still real. But now, it had been shared, and sharing it made the darkness feel a little less endless. That night, between broken words and quiet listening, her story began to exist outside of her pain, and that made all the difference. He had been trained to stay focused, to follow steps, to move from one task to the next without letting feelings interfere. In moments like this, rules mattered. Time mattered. Clear thinking mattered. Yet as he sat there with her, listening to the quiet space after her last words, he felt something deeper pulling at him. This was no longer just a situation to manage. This was a human life unfolding in front of him, fragile and unsure, waiting to see whether someone would truly stay. He could see how tired she was, not just in her face, but in the way her shoulders sagged, and how her hands rested without strength. It was the kind of tiredness that sleep could not fix, the kind that came from carrying too much for too long. He understood that if he treated this moment like just another duty, she might close herself off again, so he chose something different. He chose to stay present in a way that went beyond routine. He spoke to her again, slowly, making sure each word was clear and gentle. He told her she didn't need to be brave right now. That bravery had already brought her this far, even if it didn't feel like it. He reminded her that sometimes surviving meant allowing someone else to help carry the weight. His voice stayed calm, not rushed, not distant. She looked at him with uncertainty. Her whole life had taught her not to expect much from people. Promises often faded, support often disappeared when things became uncomfortable. She was afraid that if she leaned even a little, she would fall again. He could see that fear clearly, even though she didn't say it out loud. He didn't push her to trust him. Instead, he offered small choices. He asked if she was comfortable sitting where she was, or if she wanted to move somewhere quieter. He asked if she wanted water. Simple questions, respectful questions. Each one reminded her that she still had control, even in this moment. Slowly, she responded. A nod. A quiet yes. Small signs, but meaningful ones. He noticed how her breathing became more even as she realized she wasn't being rushed or judged. He stayed at her level, not standing over her, not making her feel small. He wanted her to feel safe, not managed. Inside his own thoughts, he made a decision. No matter how long this took, he would not leave her alone with her pain. He had seen what happened when people felt unseen. He knew that sometimes one steady presence could change the direction of a life. She told him she didn't believe things could improve, that she had heard hopeful words before and they never lasted. He didn't try to convince her with big promises. Instead, he told her something simple. She didn't need to believe in a better future today. All she needed was to get through this moment. Tomorrow could wait. That idea seemed to surprise her. She had always thought she needed to fix everything at once, or give up entirely. No one had ever told her it was okay to focus on just one moment at a time. The thought felt lighter, less overwhelming. He reminded her that pain often speaks louder when someone is alone. That isolation can make even small problems feel impossible. He explained that support didn't mean weakness. It meant survival, and survival was not something to be ashamed of. She listened quietly, her eyes focused on the floor, then slowly lifting to meet his. In that look, there was still fear, but there was also something else, a small question forming, wondering if maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face everything by herself. He told her that choosing to stay didn't mean her struggles would disappear overnight. Healing was not fast or simple, but it was possible, especially when taken one step at a time. He spoke honestly, without pretending life would suddenly be easy. That honesty made his words feel real. For the first time, she didn't argue with him. She didn't say he was wrong. She didn't push his words away. She simply listened. That alone felt like progress. He noticed how her hands stopped shaking as much, how her posture slowly changed, not strong, but less collapsed. These small changes told him she was still fighting, even if she didn't realize it. He shared, carefully, that he had seen many people at their lowest points, people who once believed they were beyond help. Some of them later found reasons to smile again, reasons they never expected. He didn't say this to pressure her, only to remind her that today's pain did not have to define her entire story. She asked him quietly why he cared so much. It wasn't a challenge, just genuine confusion. He answered honestly. He said that every life mattered, not because it was perfect, but because it was human. He told her that moments like this were why he chose this work, to be there when someone couldn't stand alone anymore. Her eyes filled with tears again, but she didn't turn away. Being seen still felt uncomfortable, but it no longer felt dangerous. She whispered that she didn't feel worthy of that kind of care. He gently told her that worth was not something she had to earn in moments of pain. It already existed. He could sense the shift inside her. It wasn't hope yet, but it was openness. A door that had been locked for a long time was now slightly open. He knew better than to rush it. Some doors needed time. He reminded her that accepting help didn't mean losing herself. It meant protecting herself. He assured her that she would not be left alone after this moment, that there were people and paths ready to support her, even if she couldn't see them clearly yet. She took a deep breath, the deepest she had taken in a long time. It felt strange, like stretching a muscle she hadn't used in years. With that breath came a quiet decision, not to fix everything, not to feel better instantly, but to stay. He noticed it immediately, not in her words, but in her presence. She was still here, still listening, still breathing with him in the room. That was enough for now. In choosing to stay with her, to listen beyond duty, he had done more than follow rules. He had chosen compassion, and that choice, steady and intentional, became a turning point, one that neither of them would fully understand until much later, but one that mattered deeply in this moment. The night continued, slow and quiet, but no longer empty. And in that shared stillness, something important had been decided. Her life was worth holding on to, even when she couldn't hold it herself. The journey away from that room felt slow, even though everything around them was moving quickly. Lights passed by outside, soft and blurry, as if the world itself was tired. She lay quietly, wrapped in warmth, listening to steady sounds that reminded her she was not alone. Her body felt weak, but her mind was awake, filled with mixed thoughts that rose and fell like gentle waves. He stayed close, watching her carefully, but also watching the small details that told him how she was doing. Her breathing was uneven at first, then slowly began to calm. Each steady breath felt like a small victory. He spoke to her now and then, not with long talks, just short reminders that she was safe and that she didn't have to say anything if she didn't want to. She stared at the ceiling, noticing how the light moved slightly with every turn. It felt strange to be carried forward when she had felt so stuck before. Part of her wanted to close her eyes and disappear into sleep, but another part was afraid to let go. She had spent so long holding everything together that resting felt unfamiliar. Her thoughts wandered. She wondered how she had reached this point without anyone noticing. Or maybe they had noticed, but didn't know what to do. She wondered how many times she had smiled to hide how empty she felt. These thoughts came quietly, without panic, as if she was observing her life from a distance. He noticed her expression change, and gently asked if she was feeling uncomfortable. She shook her head slightly and whispered that she was just thinking too much. He nodded, understanding. He told her that thinking too much often happened when the mind finally slowed down enough to speak honestly. He suggested she focus on her breathing for now, just one breath at a time. She tried. In and out. Slow. Each breath felt like a small anchor, keeping her connected to the present moment. She realized how rare it was for someone to guide her without demanding anything in return. No pressure to be cheerful. No need to explain herself. As time passed, doubt crept in quietly. She wondered if she would wake up the next day feeling the same heaviness. She wondered if this moment of calm would fade. She wanted to ask him, but she was afraid of the answer. Instead, she stayed silent. He seemed to sense her thoughts again. He spoke softly, saying that healing was not a straight road. Some days would feel heavy again, and that didn't mean failure. It meant being human. He reminded her that support didn't end after one night. This was just the beginning of a longer path. Those words settled inside her. Not as hope exactly, but as permission. Permission to not be perfect, permission to struggle without shame. That alone felt relieving. She closed her eyes for a moment and felt the movement beneath her. The steady rhythm gave her something to trust. She remembered times in her life when she had trusted easily, before disappointment taught her to guard herself. That memory made her chest ache, but it also reminded her that trust was something she had known before. Maybe it wasn't lost forever. Her body shifted slightly, and he adjusted things gently to make her more comfortable. The care in his actions spoke louder than words. It told her she mattered enough for someone to notice small things. She thought about the people in her life. Some faces brought warmth, others brought regret. She realized that she had spent so much time worrying about being a burden that she never allowed herself to be supported. She wondered how different things might have been if she had spoken earlier. That thought hurt, but it also opened a door to understanding. He told her that many people reach a breaking point not because they are weak, but because they are strong for too long. That strength without rest can become painful. Hearing that made something inside her soften. For once, her struggle was not described as failure. As they continued forward, her fear slowly changed shape. It wasn't gone, but it felt quieter. Instead of fear of ending, it became fear of starting again. Starting meant uncertainty. Starting meant facing old pain. But it also meant possibility, even if she couldn't name it yet. She whispered that she was scared. He answered honestly that fear was natural, especially when stepping into the unknown. He told her she didn't have to be fearless. She just had to keep breathing and allow others to help guide her for now. That idea felt strange but comforting. She had always believed she had to lead her own life alone. The thought of being guided felt like relief she didn't know she needed. Time passed gently. The sounds around them became familiar, almost soothing. She noticed how her body felt heavier, not from sadness, but from tiredness that finally felt safe enough to surface. Her eyes closed again, this time without fear. He watched as her breathing became slower, more regular. He knew this rest was important. Not just physical rest, but emotional rest. A pause from the constant battle inside her mind. Even as she rested, her story continued quietly within her. It was no longer trapped inside her alone. It had been shared, acknowledged, and carried by someone else, even if just for a little while. As they reached their destination, the world outside felt different. Not kinder, not easier, but less distant. She wasn't facing it alone anymore. That made all the difference. Before she fully drifted into rest, she felt a gentle reassurance, not spoken, but understood. This moment was not the end of her story. It was a fragile turning point, balanced between fear and courage, where staying had become possible. Morning arrived slowly, without noise or rush. Soft light entered the room, touching the walls and then her face. She opened her eyes and blinked, confused at first about where she was. For a moment, fear tried to rise again, but it didn't take over. Something felt different. The heaviness was still there, but it no longer felt like it was crushing her. It felt held. She noticed the quiet sounds around her. Gentle footsteps in the hallway. Calm voices somewhere nearby. The world had not ended overnight. Life had continued, and somehow she was still part of it. That thought surprised her more than anything else. Her body felt weak but safe. Her mind felt tired but clearer. She remembered the night before in pieces. The calm voice, the steady presence, the way someone had stayed when she couldn't stay for herself. The memory brought tears to her eyes, but these tears were not sharp. They were slow, thoughtful, almost thankful. Someone came in and spoke to her kindly, explaining where she was and what would happen next. The words were simple, not overwhelming. She was told she could take things one step at a time. No pressure. No rush. Just steps. As the hours passed, she began to understand that surviving the night did not mean everything was suddenly better. Pain did not vanish. Doubt still visited her thoughts. But now, those thoughts were answered by voices outside her own head. She was no longer alone with them. She spent time resting, sometimes sleeping, sometimes just lying quietly. In those quiet moments, she noticed small things she had forgotten to notice before. The warmth of a blanket, the calm rhythm of her breathing, the simple fact of being alive without having to perform for anyone. Later, when she was strong enough to sit up, she thought about her life with a gentler eye. Not judging it, just looking at it. She saw how long she had been trying to be everything for everyone, how often she had ignored her own needs, how easily she believed she had to earn care. That belief felt weaker now. Not gone, but challenged. Someone had cared for her without asking for anything back. That truth stayed with her. Days passed, and slowly, conversations began. Not all at once, not deeply at first, just enough to keep the door open. She learned words for things she had only felt before. She learned that many people carried pain quietly, just like she had. That knowledge didn't make her pain smaller, but it made it less lonely. Some days were harder than others. There were mornings when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. There were moments when old thoughts returned, telling her she was still too much, still not enough. But now, those thoughts didn't go unanswered. She had tools, she had support, she had reminders. She learned that healing was not about becoming someone new. It was about slowly returning to herself. The parts she had buried to survive were still there, waiting patiently. One afternoon, while sitting near a window, she noticed something simple outside. A bird resting on a wire, unmoving but alert. It wasn't flying. It wasn't rushing. It was just there. For some reason, that felt important. She realized she didn't have to rush either. Being still was allowed. As time went on, she began to think about the night that changed everything. Not with fear, but with clarity. She saw how close she had come to giving up, and how one decision, not even her own at first, had shifted her path. Someone had refused to let her disappear. She wondered about him sometimes. The man who had stayed calm when she was falling apart. She didn't know if he remembered her face or her words, but she carried the impact of his choice every day. His decision had echoed forward into her future. He, meanwhile, returned to his life and his work. Another shift, another call, another moment where someone needed help. He didn't speak much about that night. To others, it was just part of the job, but inside, it stayed with him. A reminder of why presence mattered, of how listening could save more than rules ever could. He didn't know how her story would continue. He didn't need to. Knowing that she had another chance was enough. Back in her world, life slowly expanded again. She reconnected with people carefully and honestly. Some conversations were difficult. Some were healing. She learned that not everyone would understand her journey, and that was okay. Understanding herself mattered more. She started to imagine small futures. Not big dreams yet, just simple ones. A quiet morning, a shared meal, a day without pretending. These thoughts didn't scare her the way the future once had. They felt possible. She still had days when she felt tired of trying. On those days, she remembered that staying did not mean being strong all the time. It meant continuing, even gently, even imperfectly, to rest without guilt, to exist without explaining herself. These changes were slow but real. One evening, as the sun set softly outside her window, she took a deep breath and noticed something important. The pain was no longer the only voice inside her. There was also patience, and curiosity, and a quiet sense of worth. She didn't feel fixed, she didn't feel finished, but she felt present, and that was enough. Her story did not end with that night. It continued in small choices, quiet courage, and moments of connection. It continued because someone had chosen to see her not as a problem, but as a person.